World Championship Wrestling is back where it belongs, in the National Wrestling Alliance. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself, and you're not. It's April 6, 1985. Last week in the World Wrestling Federation, it was full steam ahead towards WrestleMania, which I did a special on, and I've linked it down below for your viewing pleasure. While in the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship was defended by Chief Wahoo McDaniel inside a steel cage, losing it to Magnum TA. Jumping into the WWF first this week and its flagship show, Championship Wrestling, both Vince McMahon and the living legend Bruno Sammartino provide commentary for the first match. AJ Petruzzi and Matt Borne take on the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid. Borne sends a punch to the Kid's face as soon as the bell rings and then throws the British Bulldog into the corner but misses a spear, leading to Smith getting the tag, so both Bulldogs double team their opponent with a double clothesline. Petruzzi gets the tag and suffers a body slam and dropkick from the top rope before the Dynamite Kid once more gets the tag, snap suplexing AJ Petruzzi before hitting him with a backbreaker. With Smith once more getting the tag, he attempts a pin on Petruzzi following a running power slam, but it's interrupted by Matt Borne. So Davey Boy Smith simply lifts Borne up and then tags in the Dynamite Kid, who leapfrogs over his partner and gets a win for his team following a splash. The WWF update this week focuses on Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, and Mean Gene Okerlund reveals that following his defeat at WrestleMania to both WWF champion Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, Paul Orndorff stated,
who, when he finally regained his senses and walked away, said, "I guess I have no friends at all."
Don't take it too personally, Mr. Wonderful. It's just business. The Magnificent Muraco takes on Billy Mack one-on-one next, and Muraco continues to demonstrate just all the vicious moves he's learned from his manager, Mr. Fuji. Muraco hits Mack like a truck, easily winning the match with a tombstone piledriver. Mean Gene Okerlund interviews Tito Santana backstage. And now that WrestleMania is done and dusted, Santana only has one goal on his mind: reclaiming the WWF Intercontinental Championship from Greg the Hammer Valentine. Tito Santana has taken issue with the fact that Greg Valentine refers to himself as the greatest WWF Intercontinental Champion of all time. And Santana specifically states that that just can't be true, considering the Hammer only breaks the rules. Cry me a river, pal!
I want you back in the ring, Greg Valentine.
Another tag team match followed, as Jose Luis Rivera and Aldo Marino take on Brutus Beefcake and the WWF Intercontinental Champion himself, Greg the Hammer Valentine. Both men are accompanied by their managers, Luscious Johnny Valiant and the Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart, respectively. And as the bell rings, the animals in the crowd begin chanting, "Tito, Tito," infuriating Valentine. Rivera scores a quick body slam on Valentine, catching him by surprise, but soon suffers a shoulder breaker which sees Rivera run to Marino with his tail tucked between his legs. Aldo Marino is hit with a suplex by Greg Valentine before Brutus Beefcake gets the tag and secures a win for his team following a high knee. Mean Gene Okerlund's next guest backstage is the Magnificent Muraco, who reveals that his manager, Mr. Fuji, has been absent of late just due to the fact that
He's taking care of his harem in Arabia. Don't worry about Mr.
Harem in Arabia,
Yes,
that's a new touch
sir.
for him.
Yes.
the topic of discussion then turns to disease.
You know much about diseases, don't you?
I'd like to call my lawyers if I may.
Okay.
As the Magnificent One takes aim at the Junkyard Dog, WWF Champion Hulk Hogan, and Tito Santana, just to name a few. Those men have made the vital mistake of not properly preparing themselves for the darkness that is spreading across the United States in the form of Muraco.
Untreated, the fungus runs rampant.
Jim Haley takes on Ricky Steamboat in singles action next, and at the sound of the bell, Steamboat makes a critical mistake, turning his back on Haley, suffering a snapmare and a leg drop for his idiocy. Ricky Steamboat responds with a dropkick and 2 arm drag takedowns before Haley attempts to turn the momentum back in his favor, charging his opponent in the corner only to miss and get hit with a back suplex and a flying cross body from the top rope for Steamboat to get the win. Piper's Pit is held in the locker room this week, and Rowdy Roddy Piper's guest is none other than Big John Studd. Piper, Cowboy Bob Orton, as well as myself were all incredibly proud of Studd and how he made an absolute fool out of Andre the Giant at WrestleMania. You see, while you think you saw the 8th Wonder of the World slam John Studd at WrestleMania, that was actually doctored footage courtesy of Vince McMahon's crooked TV crew. What actually happened was that Andre failed to slam Studd and in his embarrassment attempted to steal the $15,000. Thankfully, that was prevented by Bobby the Brain Heenan.
He's trying to buy friends because he's a big goof. Not as big as you, and you're no goof.
Fear not, because that $15,000 body slam challenge is still very much alive and well. And as for the 8th Wonder of the World, Big John Studd has plans of making the Frenchman pay.
We can be what we want to. Don't you wish you were outside?
The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling is more tag team action, as Bobby Wade and Rusty Humpty Dumpty Brooks face off against the Junkyard Dog and Tito Santana. JYD immediately turns Brooks' lights off with a punch and headbutt combination. Dropping down to all fours like the crazed animal that he is, the Dog proceeds to deliver more headbutts to Brooks before Wade gets the tag. A clothesline follows and Tito Santana gets the tag, finishing the match with a figure 4 leglock victory. Following the match, the Junkyard Dog abducts an elderly woman from ringside and then proceeds to demonstrate some of the worst dance moves I've ever seen in my life.
Get down, Grandma! Get down! Get down with a dog!
Mean Gene Okerlund's final guests of the night are 3 of the best pro wrestling managers in the game today. Bobby the Brain Heenan, the Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart, and luscious Johnny Valiant. Valiant starts off by admiring his fellow manager's excellent fashion sense before all 3 of them turn their attention to another manager, Captain Loser Albano. If only Captain Albano hadn't gotten caught up in the disease of Hulkamania and Cyndi Lauper's horrible taste of pop music, then he too could have been standing here as the Mount Rushmore of the greatest managers of professional wrestling. It's too bad, so sad for him. Both David Crockett and Tony Schiavone greet us as World Championship Wrestling gets to a start. And I suppose this deserves a little bit of an explanation. Last year, Vince McMahon bought World Championship Wrestling from the NWA in what came to be known as Black Saturday. And it didn't quite turn out the way that McMahon hoped. I also did a special on that, which I've linked down below for your viewing pleasure. Instead of helping expand his wrestling empire, viewers were infuriated with Vince McMahon's version of WCW, which basically served as simply a highlight show of the very different style of wrestling that the WWF promotes. This led to viewers tuning out in droves, and so, in order to fund WrestleMania, Vince McMahon was forced to sell WCW back to the NWA, specifically Jim Crockett Promotions. Now that the history lesson is over, we can jump right into the action as the NWA World Tag Team Champions, Ivan and Nikita Koloff, take on George South and Greg Stone in a non-title match. Both the Russian Bear and the Russian Nightmare are unstoppable in their devastation, with Nikita Koloff easily securing the win for his team following a vicious Russian sickle. Tony Schiavone and David Crockett interview the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, next, and Flair states the obvious. Being the NWA World Heavyweight Champion makes him the top dog in the entire National Wrestling Alliance, before also reminding everyone,
Remember one thing, to be the man, you gotta beat the man.
Mark Hill goes head-to-head with the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant next, and while placing Hill in a shoulder lock, Valiant screams,
Come on, boys, go!
Alright, you hear it?
Superstar, baby!
He's
the barbarian!
before easily securing a win following an elbow drop. Tully Blanchard, accompanied by his Perfect 10 baby doll, takes on Sam Houston in one-on-one action next, while the NWA Television Champion, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, joins guest commentary to attack the defenseless baby doll and belittle her every opportunity that tub of lard gets.
Miss Baby Doll, they say the perfect 10. Dusty Rhodes says the perfect 0.
Shut your mouth, you lispy goof! As the match gets underway, Tully Blanchard offers his hand in a gesture of good sportsmanship to Sam Houston, who then catches Blanchard with a dropkick. This causes Tully Blanchard to employ his devastatingly effective delay tactics before he grabs a hold of Houston's hair and throws him through the ropes down to the floor. Once back inside the ring, the former NWA Television Champion misses an elbow, which opens the way for Sam Houston to Irish whip him into the corner, but only meets Tully Blanchard's knee to his face instead. Blanchard then proceeds to guillotine Houston with the bottom rope before securing that 3 count with a slingshot suplex. Tony Schiavone is once more backstage, this time with the NWA Television Champion, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Hello, Mack, how are you? Don't you know me? I'm your native son.
According to Rhodes, he has friends that he can call if Ivan and Nikita Koloff, along with Crusher Khrushchev, ever decide to put their NWA World 6-Man Tag Team Championships on the line. Don't tell me one of those friends is the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez, considering you couldn't put up the effort to defend the regular 2-man World Tag Team Championships of the NWA when you held them with him. Shouldn't you be focusing on your NWA Television Championship anyway? Who am I kidding? Rhodes is a glutton for gold, and he'll do anything to have it all. Dusty Rhodes then finally turns his attention to something that actually does involve him, with regards to the former NWA Television Champion Tully Blanchard and Baby Doll. And once again, the American Dream just can't help put a defenseless woman down when she isn't around to defend herself.
If that's a 10, Jack, then I might be interested in taking you out, Tony Schiavone.
The American Dream ends the interview by stating that if Tully Blanchard is so keen on reclaiming the NWA Television Championship, all he has to do is ask. You've signed your own death warrant, pal. Superstar Billy Graham, accompanied by his manager Paul Jones, takes on Rocky King next. Jones still has his left arm in a sling after it was unjustifiably broken by the boogie-woogie maniac Jimmy Valiant. But that doesn't stop Jones from still advising his client to a quick full Nelson victory. Backstage again, Tony Schiavone next has a word with Michael Hayes, a third of the fabulous Freebirds, who we haven't seen since last December when he was fired from the World Wrestling Federation. According to Hayes, he's back by popular demand, and then asks the Nature Boy Ric Flair if he calls himself the Nature Boy.
I'm not sure. Is that somebody that runs naked through the woods or what?
Thanks. Now I can't get that image out of my head. Michael Hayes wants Ric Flair to know that when the Nature Boy looks at him, he's looking at a man that doesn't give a crap and will do anything to take the Nature Boy down. Speaking of Ric Flair, he's in action next against Gene Ligon in a non-title match. While Ligon himself is a fine competitor, he is simply no match for the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, who responds directly to Michael Hayes by forcing Ligon to submit with the figure 4 leg lock. Tony Schiavone's next guest backstage is the boogie-woogie maniac, Jimmy Valiant. Whoa, what the hell? That's disgusting. After forcing himself on Schiavone like a lunatic, Valiant then goes on to talk about his old lady, the baseball bat, and takes pride in the fact that he used it to break Paul Jones's arm. The boogie-woogie maniac then proceeds to threaten the rest of Paul Jones's army, vowing to cripple all of them. And I have to ask, again, how is this man allowed to walk free on the streets? He's not only a menace to society, but he's a danger to himself and others. He should be locked away for good. Tony Schiavone's next guests backstage are the current NWA National Tag Team Champions, Ole Anderson and Thunderbolt Patterson. And while the two have been teaming together since 1984, Anderson has finally realized that his partnership with Patterson is a waste of time. It's his cousin, Arn Anderson, that Ole Anderson views as the future, and then calls himself a dummy for thinking that Patterson could amount to anything, while also saying that he has done nothing but carry Thunderbolt this entire time. Don't be so hard on yourself, Anderson. It's not your fault. Normally, in pro wrestling, when tag teams fall apart, it comes as a surprise, with one person turning on the other, blah blah blah, but not when it concerns Ole Anderson. Not everyone has the cojones to tell their partner to their face exactly how they feel. But then again, not everyone is Ole Anderson.
The days are over. I'm leaving. Next time I see you, I would suggest maybe you watch out.
Arn Anderson faces off against the Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez, one-on-one next, while his cousin, Ole Anderson, remains backstage to provide guest commentary. With the sound of the bell, the two competitors jockey for position until Anderson is able to ram his shoulder into Fernandez's gut in the ropes before the Raging Bull responds with a reverse elbow and then proceeds to go to work on Double A's left leg. Arn Anderson eventually breaks free by kicking Manny Fernandez out of the ring, then follows him, slamming the Raging Bull's shoulder into the ring post. Turning the tables, Anderson then proceeds to go to work on the Raging Bull's left arm, body slamming Manny Fernandez with that arm tucked behind his back for maximum damage. Manny Fernandez fights back with a flying forearm and another reverse elbow as Ole Anderson heads to the ring, pointing out that his cousin's foot is under the rope to the blind referee who planned fully on counting Arn Anderson's shoulders down to the mat for 3. At this point, the match dissolves, with the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez attempting to pick a fight with both of the Andersons, so they make him pay by slamming him down hard on the concrete floor, which prompts Thunderbolt Patterson to head down to the ring to talk some sense into his former tag team partner. What did Ole Anderson tell you, Patterson? You get what you deserve, you idiot. A huge brawl breaks out as both Arn and Ole Anderson make their powerful statements before heading to the backstage area. WCW is Anderson territory. The NWA World Tag Team Champions, Ivan and Nikita Koloff, once more speak to Tony Schiavone backstage, and the Russian Bear is incredibly proud of Ole Anderson finally getting rid of the garbage that he carried around for a year in the form of Thunderbolt Patterson. Ivan Koloff is also incredibly proud of the Russian Nightmare, his nephew, with what Nikita Koloff has been able to accomplish in such a short time since he debuted.
Take a look, Nikita! Ric Flair, you beware!
Tony Schiavone's next guest backstage is once again the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who's brought out 3 beautiful women with him and states that wherever he goes, he always leaves a woman smiling.
The women stand in line because they've been starved for the sight of a real man.
The Nature Boy then states that men such as Michael Hayes, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, as well as several others, all want to be him.
Ric Flair is forever, and so is the NWA.
Yeah, we'll see about that. The new NWA United States Heavyweight Champion, Magnum TA, is in singles action next against Paul Barnett, winning in less than 20 seconds with a belly-to-belly suplex. The Barbarian, accompanied by his manager Paul Jones, takes on Joshua Stroud one-on-one next, and immediately catches Stroud, who attempts a flying crossbody in midair, slamming him down instead. From there, Joshua Stroud is in a world of pain as he is then body slammed on the concrete before heading back into the squared circle, only to lose from a diving headbutt off of the top rope from the Barbarian. As if we haven't heard enough from the NWA Television Champion, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, he's Tony Schiavone's guest backstage yet again, and he wasn't impressed with the women that the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, had with him earlier.
But you got to understand, Flair, they don't always like them with a big nose like you got.
I have to ask, Rhodes, besides your mother, are there any women out there that impress you? With the way that you belittle the female populace, it's surprising you have children. Then, in true Dusty Rhodes fashion, he sticks his ugly nose into business that has nothing to do with him, providing his worthless 2 cents about the Anderson situation, claiming that
Ole Anderson been walking around looking for somebody he could ride on the coattails.
Bro, just shut up. You're too stupid to talk. Tony Schiavone's next guest backstage is Tully Blanchard, who's brought his Perfect 10 baby doll with him, and unlike everybody else up until this point, Blanchard is done with talking. Only what happens within the squared circle matters, especially when it regards the NWA Television Championship. A championship that Blanchard himself elevated to the heights that it sits at today. He wants it back from that moronic tub of goo that calls himself the American Dream. And so do I.
My lifestyle requires it. Baby doll's lifestyle requires it. The day will come when that belt is right back around my waist.
The Nature Boy, Buddy Landel, accompanied by his manager James J. Dillon, takes on David Dillinger next in one-on-one action. Landel is so in control of his opponent that not only does he have time to talk about the weather with his manager, but then also stops to ask,
"What's that guy's name trying to imitate me, Flair?"
before a figure 4 leglock forces Dillinger to submit. Tony Schiavone is once more backstage, this time with the man that we just saw, James J. Dillon, who also has Black Bart with him. The reason we haven't seen a lot of Dillon lately, or the Long Riders for that matter, is due to the fact that Dillon himself has been scouring the world, specifically the Middle East, for more talent to sign. You see, James J. Dillon is building an empire, the greatest empire pro wrestling has ever seen. What, you don't believe me? You will after Black Bart is finished mauling his opponent Ron Rossi in the main event of World Championship Wrestling, especially after he viciously throws Rossi to the floor so hard that the ring rope breaks. James J. Dillon heads down to the ringside area to not only support his client, but then also help Ron Rossi back into the ring like the gentleman that he is. So the match continues with only 2 ring ropes until Black Bart secures the win with a huge leg drop. Do you believe me now? The final interview Tony Schiavone conducts of the night is with the cousins, Arn and Ole Anderson, whose relationship has deepened so much after tonight that they begin to refer to each other as brothers. Double A is exploding with pride at his cousin's actions towards Thunderbolt Patterson, citing it as,
"Brother, this is a rekindling of a dynasty." You understand what I'm saying?
Tony Schiavone does bring up a good point, however. What will happen to the NWA National Tag Team Championships, considering they're still held by both Ole Anderson and his now former tag team partner, Thunderbolt Patterson? I guess only time will tell. But until then, Ole Anderson simply reminds us that blood is always thicker than water. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to hit the bell, like the video, and subscribe so you never miss when a new episode is released. You can also follow me on social media where it is 1985 in pro wrestling all over again. That's it for me. I'll see you next week. So long. Mean Gene Okerlund's next guest backstage is the Magnificent Muraco. Flies spread disease, so keep yours closed. If the hair don't look good, I don't go on. The American Dream has friends that he can call to take on. Take on me. Like, what am I doing?